Last week we covered the most broken supers in the Injustice series, so now it's finally time to discuss the worst, from terrible range to low damage and everything in between. So please post which characters you think have the worst supers in the comments down below, and without any further ado, let's get started. So unfortunately, first up we have Green Lantern, because his super actually does the least damage, which is odd because he can make anything he imagines, so you would think he would make things that hurt a lot. And to his credit, he does seem to be trying very hard, but after all that effort, all he gets is 31%. And a lot of you watching may argue that Harley Quinn has the lowest damage super. However, keep in mind that Harley Quinn can combo after her super for some really good damage, whereas Green Lantern just doesn't have that option. He only gets the flat 31%. However, even so, don't you dare feel bad for Green Lantern. This guy was one of the gods of this game. He's very, very strong. His mix-ups were godlike, and every time he got a hit, it led to big damage. He was also really good at zoning too, has an air dash, all that amazing stuff, so do not feel bad for Green Lantern, because if anything, this low damage super was just meant to balance him out. And it's also worth noting that once you were down to your second health bar in this game, you did have access to a wager, which would break the opponent's combo, and in that situation, Harley Quinn would have the lowest damaging super. Unless of course it's possible to do her back 3 after the super. I've been testing it and the timing seems very close. Maybe it's possible, but I haven't gotten it to work yet, and I've also scoured some videos on YouTube and I haven't found anybody else doing the back 3 after her super either. They typically always do it before because comboing into her super is really fun, but as a result I can't find any footage of people doing back 3 after her super. So if it is in fact possible, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to know. And then next up we have Lex Luthor, and his biggest issue is range. Even if you get the hit, his super has such bad range on the first couple of hits that it's likely to whiff and drop the combo. Now of course there are ways around this. You could just do different strings that are easier to combo into it, or you could just make sure to space them a little bit better, but it was kind of annoying when first playing this character to land the hit but then still not get your super, even though you did hit the opponent, you were just too far away. In fact, even one of his fastest punishes, 1-1, would whiff into his super if landed further away, which kinda defeats the point of having such a good standing one, or at least if you're going for a super combo. However, keep in mind Lex Luthor is more of a setup character. He can zone, he can do traps, all that amazing stuff, and as a result he didn't really rely on his super, so it's not a big deal breaker, but it is still kind of mind-boggling why they made a super that had such bad range to begin with. Oh, and I almost forgot, if you did miss the first hit, he would just keep going, which made his super one of the easiest to whiff punish in the entire game. For example, if you were Superman in this situation, you could not only punish him, but you could jump and then air dash behind him and then go for an optimal punish. Once again, from a lore perspective, it is kind of funny because Lex Luthor is one of the smartest beings in the DC universe, and even he didn't think to give his super a bit more range. And then finally, as an honorable mention, we have Solomon Grundy, because his super is very unique. Basically every one of his attacks is gone and instead becomes an unblockable throw. Every button except for his throw button, oddly enough, that button actually does nothing once you've activated super, which I find kind of odd. And like you just saw, Grundy only has a short amount of time to grab the opponent. You can actually watch his super meter drain, that's your clock, but if you do manage to land the unblockable throw, you're given a pretty decent amount of damage. However, in saying that, it's still not the most damaging super. Characters like Shazam get more damage outright. However, thankfully for Grundy, he does have a throw chain that will buff his damage, and this will also make his super hurt that much more. However, even after this damage buff and maybe even Grave Rot for a bit more damage, it's still not the most damaging super in the game when you factor in his character trait. For example, characters like Bane and Shazam can still get more damage with their character trait. And you likely already guessed this, but you actually can't combo into this super. In fact, you can't even combo into the activation of the super. The game just straight up will not let you. You have to do it raw. And that's a real issue because even though Grundy does become armored during this super, Injustice was notorious for its keep away, and every time he's hit by a projectile, he is still staggered. So is he armored? Yes, 110%, but I could not grab Deathstroke to save my life there. And in fact, not only did my super not land, but I also took a bunch of damage the entire time. Look at this, I'm stuck to the ground, it's like glue, and yeah, my jump gets better, but look, he can just keep me in the air. So against certain characters, this super was almost useless. And when I say some characters, I mean a lot of them, because plenty of characters in this game had keep away like this. My god, I'm even jumping and mashing throw and I still can't get him because he's stunning me. Oh my god. And it's honestly a real shame this super is so bad, because I think NetherRealm had a really fun idea for a concept here. All he can do is throw, his jumps get better, he's got a bunch of armor, he can even throw you out of the air. So on paper, it honestly is a really fun mechanic. The issue is that he is completely stunned and not just slowed down. And then on top of that, he can't even cancel into it to make sure he's really close to the opponent and they're stuck in hit stun, so he's basically always at a disadvantage every time he activates this super. However, just like Green Lantern, please do not feel bad for Solomon Grundy. I made an entire video on why this character is one of the best grapplers that NetherRealm has ever made, because even though he did have some very tough matchups, all he had to do was get in once and he was pretty much guaranteed to do like 75% damage. And you think I'm joking, but I'm absolutely not. If you don't believe me, I recommend checking out that video. And that's about it for the first Injustice game, so now it's time to move on to Injustice 2 after a quick word from today's sponsor. Behold, my allies in the fight against demonetization. Father's Day is quickly approaching, and the Ridge wallet makes the perfect gift. Just check out the Father's Day guide on their website and find the best gear for your dad. Have your father ditch his old bulky wallet and get him a new wallet that's fit for the 21st century. There are 3 things that I absolutely love about the Ridge wallet. Number 1, it is sleek and compact. Have you ever gotten a compliment on your wallet before? Me neither, until I started using the Ridge wallet. Now I get them fairly often, and I can understand why. This one is 18 karat gold, baby. And maybe you don't want something quite as flashy. Guess what? Titanium has your back. Look at this bad boy. It is still stunning and beautiful. Reason number 2 why I love the Ridge wallet. What's up? Extremely durable, and they also have a lifetime warranty. If you somehow do damage these bad boys, they're guaranteed you get a replacement. They're gonna last you a lifetime. And then reason number 3, they have a 45-day money back guarantee. So if you try one out and you don't like it, you can send it back and it's no cost to you. Go ahead and get one, try it out, see if you like it. Check out the link in my video description and make sure to use code DOG, because that coupon code is gonna get you 10% off your order. So I think it's time for you to finally see what all the hype was about. Try a Ridge wallet today. So the first character we have to talk about in Injustice 2 is Darkseid. That's right, Darkseid, one of the most powerful villains in all of DC. This character has the lowest damaging super in the entire game, which is quite crazy considering all the nonsense that's happening on screen. He even grabs them with a gigantic hand, but somehow it's still the lowest damaging super. However, at the very least, this super gets points for style, because look at the Omega Death Beams. Look at those things just flying everywhere. Now, despite the ridiculous angle, it was always a mid, so it's not a mix-up or anything. But at the same time, if your opponent was in the air or doing some kind of attack, this move had a good chance of whiff punishing them. Although the super is also kind of slow as well, because it is 15 frames on startup, which isn't really terrible, but keep in mind it also has to travel to the opponent. It does not activate instantly. And this could make it a bit tricky to combo into unless you kept things short and simple. For example, check out this combo right here. It's not very long, but even so, this super is not going to connect in time. And for a random fun fact, if the opponent teleported right when you did your super, they would still get hit because they went right in front of Darkseid's eyeballs. Now, it's not very likely to happen, but I just kind of find it funny how you're trying to avoid the super only to fly right in front of it. And next up, let's talk about Supergirl, one of my favorite new additions to the Injustice series. I was super hyped for this character, and when she finally came out, I was not disappointed. She's very, very fun. However, in saying that, her super has some terrible range. It definitely seems like NetherRealm wanted this to be an anti-air kind of super to catch people when they were jumping, although oddly enough, she doesn't go very high into the air, and she also can't do it while in the air, which you'd think that someone like Supergirl would be able to do since she can in fact fly. But oddly enough, she does have to be on the ground. Even though her feet aren't touching, she's still technically flying, but you get the idea. Thankfully, unlike Lex Luthor in Injustice 1, I can't find any situations where this super whiffs on basic strings. It seems to move her forward just enough to connect off most of her normals, and it's not too hard to combo into due to its fast startup. So as long as you don't use this super randomly in the neutral, you should be completely alright. Even so, I wanted to bring up how bad its range was because we are listing the worst supers. And then finally, to end the video, we have Scarecrow. Once again, one of my favorite new additions to the Injustice series. Honestly, a really fun and wacky kind of character, very unorthodox, but once you put in practice with him, he was very strong. However, when it came to supers, he does have one of the slowest in the entire game. In fact, it might be the slowest at 35 frames of startup. I'll be honest with you, comboing into this super was not the easiest thing to do. You had to do very specific strings if you launched the opponent, otherwise they would not be high enough. And then for longer combos, forget about it. It just wasn't possible to combo into this thing. And just like Lex Luthor, Scarecrow cannot combo into his super off of his fastest punishes, but it's not a range issue, it's just the startup. As you can see, my fastest buttons into super will not combo. Like I mentioned earlier, you had to be very careful about how you comboed into this thing. If you used the wrong string or the wrong launcher, it would not connect. Though if I'm being honest, comboing into this super wasn't the best idea anyway, because the scaling was pretty high. You didn't get very much damage for super combos with Scarecrow. Instead, you wanted to save his meter for combos, or stacking his paranoia, or teleports, command grabs, all that amazing stuff. So it kind of makes sense why his super is lacking. I think NetherRealm didn't want you to be using it very often with this character, and as an incentive, they made it very below average. Alright everyone, that's about it for the worst super attacks in the Injustice games. As you can see, they're not that bad, they're more so just below average. I think overall NetherRealm did a good job making the supers not terrible. Some of them were definitely a bit too strong. I made a video about that about a week ago if you want to check it out. Some of the supers are definitely a bit too strong or downright broken when the game first came out. But when it came to being bad, the supers didn't really suffer that much. They're either just a bit too slow or had some bad range or some lackluster damage. But let me know in the comment section which characters you think had the worst super. And then while you're down there, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help my channel out a ton. And finally, if you haven't already, make sure to suplex that subscribe button. This channel has grown to over 300,000 subscribers strong, and it's the best fighting game community on YouTube. So what are you waiting for? Make sure you subscribe as well, that way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.